Well, here we are, sitting with Otti Albietz. Good morning. Gulp of water.
Get morning, yeah. Get pumping.
Now, take you back to the beginning, because you were actually born in Spain, in Malaga, I believe.
Yeah. Originally, yeah.
So when did you move over here?
Well, been back and forth for years, really. I think I came over here first time because my dad's English.
Yeah.
Came over here when I was just over a year, I think. There's a photo of me on Hastings Beach.
Ah, bless.
Yeah, but nothing on the pebbles. Sometime in the late 80s.
Oh, right. But you actually spent a lot of your childhood in Europe travelling around, I believe.
Yeah, we drove all over the place.
Was that...
Like Ireland, Portugal, France, Spain.
So that's quite an interesting upbringing.
Yeah, it was, definitely.
So has that had any sort of influence on what you've done since, whether musically or in life generally? Yeah,
I'd say it definitely did. Because my dad would always listen. Well, my mum and dad would always listen to all sorts of tapes in the car, in the bus, as cars and buses as we were driving along. That was that's my main memory of hearing whole records all the way through, because we'd just be driving for hours on end, and you'd just have Leonard Cohen on repeat, or King Crimson, or Hendrix stuff.
Interesting.
It was always a soundtrack to the.
So did you pick up any of the sort of the music from those places where you went, whether it be Ireland or growing up in Spain, the sort of the flamenco stuff or anything? From
yeah, I mean, I went to school in Spain for 4 years, from the age of 7 till 11, I guess, or around about that. During which we'd also, cause they used to have 3-month summer holidays, so during that time we'd also just go off and travel Europe for a while, or visit family. But while we were based in Spain, there'd obviously be local festivals and things that I'd go to, and flamenco was obviously a massive part of it. We had gypsy friends there as well that would play flamenco just as a staple diet.
Oh, great.
I think that's the first time I encountered guitar as a thing. That and my dad's infatuation with electric guitar. And
oh, so he was a guitarist himself?
Well...
You thought he was?
Yeah, if he watches this. Sorry, Trevor. Well, it's kind of just, I guess he taught me freedom on the guitar. I think he knew how to, and probably still knows how to, tune the 3 bass strings to a kind of drone, right? And then he'll go off on one.
Okay.
That was my first introduction to just doing what you like.
So is that what got you into playing the guitar? Was there sort of a moment there when you thought, either watching your dad or listening to the music, and you thought, I want to do that, I want to have a go at that? Yeah,
retrospectively.
So you did,
and seeing, I think, watching, well, hearing Hendrix and watching the videos of it that my dad used to watch a lot. Well, my parents, I would say my dad, but I think he was more visually impassioned with it. But I guess, watching him and the way he'd act in bars and pubs, because he just, if there was a guitar after the band had finished, he'd always be rather tipsy and then ask whether he could borrow it and play, and then he'd just go off on one with it.
Improvise.
And I saw Paco de Lucia, Spanish flamenco guitarist. I saw him at the age of 5 or 6. I think that was probably one of my first live experiences where I just went, wow.
So it was in some ways a visual thing as much as a musical thing that got you.
Yeah. Because I still think to this day, because I'm left-handed with everything else, but I play the guitar right-handed.
Oh, right.
And I think it's because I used to look at posters of Jimi Hendrix again.
Who was left-handed.
But I'd kind of look at it
you're playing it the wrong way around.
As a mirror, in a way. I don't think that's necessarily true, but it sounds good. I think it might be that, yeah.
So when did you actually start playing yourself? Right-handed or left-handed?
I first used to borrow my dad's guitars maybe about the age of 7 or 8, not knowing how to tune it. I just kind of play on one string for a while. Then I just faded away for years till I was 12 or 13, and I bumped into a guy on a traveller's campsite that played guitar, and I just asked him whether he'd show me a few things. It's probably the only time I've ever had such a thing as a lesson, as in he showed me an E chord and maybe a minor chord of some sort, and I just kind of lived off that for a few years, learned how to tune it.
That's not easy, is it?
What, tuning
as
guitar?
a non-guitar playing person myself?
Not initially, no. I mean, I remember a time when we were living next to a ruin in a caravan out in the middle of nowhere in Spain, and we'd used to, once a month, we'd go into town to see a guy that lived on the seafront somewhere that had come from, I think he was Liverpudlian. We used to call him Red-Headed Richard, because he was called Richard and had red hair. And he used to tune my guitar, so he used to save whatever it was, a few 100 pesetas at the time, and pay him to tune my guitar. 'Cause
Oh,
I
right.
couldn't. And then I just play it very carefully, rather than ask him how to show me to
I
do
hope
it.
you didn't
but
break
never
a
mind.
string or something.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then I think I just gave up for a few years because, strangely enough, originally I actually wanted to play string, like bowed instruments, like cellos and violins. Don't really remember why, but I remember being really like into the idea of playing
Sometimes
cello.
it's the sound
But-
of something, isn't it? That sort of you think, I love the sound of
Yeah,
that.
I
you
was, and just really into the idea of bowing something and
know. Right.
playing it, but that literally never happened. And I don't think my parents could afford to like buy a cello, and that's more of an instrument where you need some sort of tuition.
Yeah, I
think.
can believe that. So when
Ended
did
up on
you?
guitar.
So when did you actually start writing your own songs? You know, picking up the guitar. Did it come easy to you once you started? And the actual playing.
Yeah,
sorry.
probably. Well, I'd consider myself more of a singer and a songwriter, really. Like guitar's second in a strange way.
Okay.
I've heard a lot of people at gigs, after gigs I've played, will kind of comment on the guitar aspect just as much as they will vocals and writing. But I think writing and voice came much earlier on. Like in my head as young as I can think.
But you need a vehicle or something to play those songs
Yeah,
on, I suppose.
yeah. I think in that way, that's why guitar is just timeless in a sense, because you can do, you can synthesize it, you can bash it, you can strum it softly, you can do all sorts with it.
So that's
It's
become
more
a
diverse.
that's the tool that you sort of get everything else out, is it? And does it help?
Mostly, yeah.
Does it help that you've not really had the lessons? You've just done what you wanted to with the guitar, done it your own way in a way.
Yeah, yeah. I'm meeting a lot of musicians and if I really love what they're doing, then I'm usually open enough to kind of ask, how did you do that thing?
Yeah.
Or what are you using when you make that sound?
Yeah.
So it's taken, for certain things, it's taken years where I might have learnt it in a weekend with some master guitarist or whatever, but in a way I just hold it more dearly then, because I've learnt it directly off someone as a friend rather than a teacher.
And does the exposure to all that music, and travelling around and hearing all that different flamenco or whatever the type of music that you heard and experienced or was played to you, is that sort of all sort of meshed up into something and made the songs different, influenced you in lots of ways?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, must have done in some way.
Not
Yeah, I don't know.
conscious?
I don't think I consciously put it in there, but then I probably can't help put it coming out anyway.
No.
Regardless, really. Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah.
I think in retrospect, I listen to the previous records and go, oh yeah, I guess there is that in there and that in there.
Maybe, I mean, having heard some of your music myself, and then I hear, read the backstory and know a bit about the backstory, and I think, oh yeah, I can hear little elements of that. Not like I'm know a huge amount about that particular music, but you can hear that there's something a little bit different in there to what you were classing.
Because I think I sit down or whatever when I'm like initiating or writing. I guess I'm writing all the time, but I always feel I'm kind of writing inviting, accessible, not what I'd call pop music, but I'm trying to write stuff that's entertaining and that kind of, but it also expresses something that I feel, but it doesn't feel like I'm trying to write avant-garde, challenging stuff as such consciously.
Just comes out that way.
Yeah, well, I guess so. Yeah, fun. I think fun's the main one. Fun, genuine, not too depressing.
Well,
But there's stuff that's like, yeah.
it has to be fun. It has to be you, I think, because you need to be a little bit unique or be yourself. I always think with songwriters
I can
and
never really
musicians,
start. The thing is, I could never start lyrics or melodies or just song, whatever element of song I start with. I can never really do it by saying, right, I'm going to write this sort of song or this sort of song. I go with the tiniest little kernel or something, and then it'll just go off on one, and then it's only later I go, oh, wait, it kind of has a strange. With one has a slightly, I guess, samba-ish or bossa nova type thing about it, which I didn't really feel whilst I was in the middle of it. But afterwards you go, oh, I guess it's more South American for some reason.
There's no process as such. It's sort of like a stream of consciousness sort of thing. Something comes out and it just keeps going. And
I think if it tickles me, basically, if it somehow drives me and makes me feel like, yeah, it's got something to it. That's all it is, really. Even if a lyric doesn't make much sense, if it kind of does something to me, tickles me slightly, then...
Yeah, I mean, some of your lyrics,
right.
I listen to some of your lyrics and I think, where's that come from? But I mean, hopefully you just explain that, because it's... But
yeah,
I
don't like spending too long on it. I think having three records in 3 years kind of shows that. And I'd like to, if possible, I'd like to do more, but it's not always possible to put out more than that. 2 a year would be great, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Do you write a lot of songs? Do you sort of throw? I was asking another musician this the other day. Do you write lots of songs and discard them, or do you save them for maybe other projects or something like that? Or?
Yeah, they all kind of stay. They all either stay in my head or on a phone or previously on tape somewhere.
Yeah. Tape? Yeah.
Not even that long ago. No, like just 2-3 years ago I had a tape Walkman thing.
Yeah.
It's just kind of fun to put them on there because you just have to, you're almost forced to either rewind or fast forward, or if you're trying to save the battery, you just listen through the whole thing and go, oh God, where the hell did that thing come from? It's a freer way of doing it. It's quite nice.
So, what I mean, you're effectively a solo musician at the moment. I know you have a backing
for this
band.
particular project.
Yeah, we'll come to that in a minute. But I know you've done other things before. You played with other bands. Has there been many bands, or has it been mainly a solo career? Put it that way.
No, I guess late teens I got more into actually going, right, maybe all this stuff that's going on in my head could actually be deemed a song of some sort, and wrote a lot. And in fact I recorded a 16-track album on a 4-track Fostex, I think it was, some sort of Porter thing of the time that was amazing, breakthrough. Just for the fun of it and just to show friends and that. So that was the first thing I'd ever recorded, and that was a solo thing as such. Don't know where it is. I actually don't have a copy.
No, you lost that one.
I have to find that. Yeah, there must be some. I think there's someone out there that has it. I gave it to a few people. But yeah, the first thing I did live was play with bands.
That's obviously what I asked you about.
Initially as a guitarist.
Yeah.
And in heavier stuff, sort of hardcore, grindcore, punk, thrash. Not so much metal. Though it was, you could still deem it that. I was more into stuff that was slightly grimier, I guess, whereas metal always felt a bit clean and twiddly, which I didn't like.
So that might be a surprise for some people. I mean, they're listening to your albums and it's mainly sort of acoustic guitars, and you always think that there's more of a sort of a folk influence or something like that, and then you were saying that you were really influenced by, obviously, a lot harder music. Yeah,
because I think my first infatuation with guitar would have been Hendrix, which in my opinion is quite heavy for its time as well, and it's all about getting new sounds out of a guitar, which I really loved. I mean, I think the reason these first three have ended up quite stripped down and acoustic is that the bands I was in up until the point of One, the first album, during that time I'd written loads and loads of solo stuff that I was keeping to the side and putting on whatever, tape, phones, etc. And then when I got to a point where I wasn't happy with my previous band, and I just wasn't happy with the process of co-writing, or a lot of the time bringing full songs and then watching them be turned into something I wasn't too happy with. I mean, it was good enough music, but it wasn't what I wanted to do really. So I just decided to do One, and in the process realised I had another two, loads of records that kind of, these three records that worked best, quite stripped down and investigative. Whereas I think now I'm going to get more into, even in the solo stuff, just more into other sounds. Feels a little like I've got the stripped down acoustic voice stuff out of the way for now.
Because you've done 3 albums. One, as you mentioned, Bubby Tone 2, and the new album, and the Voices.
Yeah.
So and as you say, you've had musicians playing with the new album. I mean, it says "and the Voices" is effectively a band there. So is that the way that you're going now? Say from more of a solo artist project to more of a band, or is that going to morph into something else?
Well, I guess it's felt like it's been as much as it's been quite a speedy process, like recording quite a lot of records in a short amount of time without gigging a lot, or at least not gigging as much as you usually would for a record. Each one has had a slightly different vibe to it, and it's kind of helped me realise what I want to do with this project, which is to a degree still keep it very much individual and solo and personal, but with the freedom of being able to work with all sorts of different musicians. I mean, in the process of these 3, I've probably worked with around about 10 different musicians that have come in and out. Like Jeff Lee played flute on 3 songs on One. I was going to get him on Bubby Tone 2 and the Voices actually, but that didn't work out at this point. I had Jason Williams, who's like complete noise freestyle musician, which I really loved. Had him on Bubby Tone 2. Had Yunji, on violin on the first one. My girlfriend on vocals, because I found out she was a soprano singer.
Oh, right.
So I just made use of that. And her brother on clarinet. So it's always been a chance to, whilst meeting people, always have it as a core project that I can work with lots of people on. So that the third album, I had Darren Morris on keyboards as a good friend, and he's a guest musician on synth throughout most of it, actually, probably every song or every other song. Can't remember right now. And then but to pull that off, because what I discovered through making Bubbytone 2, which took about 9 or 10 months worth of days here and there.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't take that amount of time. It was maybe 2 or 3 weeks, but it was just spread out that much, and I just felt it was a very enjoyable album to make in retrospect. But I think at the time I got quite frustrated, and me and Harvey had points where I got quite frustrated. Yeah, Harvey Summers. Yeah.
So I mean, are the songs are they sort of your babies? We were talking before we sort of turned the cameras on about, and you mentioned earlier, but sort of effectively letting the song go when it's your song, and then you get other people involved. I mean, the earlier albums presumably were more, this is my song, this is the way that we do it. Are you moving away from that a little bit now to letting other people have an input?
Yeah, I mean, they always have to a degree, but I'm always slightly, maybe controlling is the wrong word, but directive.
Well, they're your songs, they're precious to you,
yeah. I think that's what's particular about this project, is that and what I've realised in making these 3 records rather quickly is that I get the freedom that I still want to hold on to with this one, is that I can write however I like, I can investigate whatever silliness I like, and I can insist that actually, it will have a really soft vocal but a really loud guitar and some shouting in it if I want that kind of thing. Which has brought me to the point of realising with Thad and James, which is at this point I haven't told them yet, but they'll know once they see this. I've kind of got to the point where I want to form a band with them separately, where we actually write stuff from scratch, because I'd love to co-write with Thad. I'd love to co-write with James. Yeah, as a set band with a different name. Just with that freedom where everyone can feel a bit, not that they feel limited in this, but I guess it's just, well, in a sense maybe it's my unwillingness to
let go.
Break out. Yeah, and I guess a project, what I've realised is the reason this started in the first place under my own name is that it is personal anyway, from the first step. So wherever I get involved, I love leaving freedom. I mean, when I work with Jeff and Jason, I didn't go, well, here, improvise, but play these notes.
Yeah.
I just went, well, here are the chords, do what you like, literally, Jeff. And pretty much with James and Thad for the third album, I mean, I directed what the chords were and what I wanted here, there, and in these places, but how they interpreted it was up to them. I wouldn't really change that as such, but I guess it just doesn't feel like a set band project. And working with someone like James Gulliver and Thad Skewes, I think you'd be silly not to form a free band, I think.
Well, no, I mean, that's part of the reason for the question. I mean, they're good musicians who've got a lot of experience themselves, so they can probably bring something else.
Yeah, I think we'd write amazing stuff, like under a band name, band title.
An opportunity not to be missed in some ways.
And I mean, I think basically we'll carry on as we are with this project.
Yeah.
But it's always an off and on thing. I'll play solo sets. Sometimes I'll play just with James, like we did on the radio show last week, and just with Thad. And then we've got End of the Road in a couple of weeks where we'll play as a full band, and we'll just keep that going anyway.
So I was going to say that about gigs, because I believe you've done actually a lot of gigs in Europe. You know, going back to your roots, maybe, I don't know. Was that solo with Thad or?
Over the last few years.
Yeah, sort of fairly low.
That was the first little tour, just like 5 or 6 dates. It was me and a guy called Benno, a friend of mine that now lives in Hamburg. He originally lived over here. And he played drums on both first and the second album. Yeah. So we did a little tour in mostly Germany, and I did a few in France and Switzerland. Yeah. And then the second one was me and Thad as a duo, and a friend of mine, Aaron King, as what we kind of swapped support and main act or whatever. Didn't really turn out that way. Well, yeah, that was a slightly.
So what about
that's a long story, that tour. That
so
was
with the new band,
catastrophe.
And you've got a new album out, as you say, and the Voices, and you're now on BBE Records, or Music, shall I say, which I believe is a local label.
Yeah, they've moved here now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Paris, Berlin, New York, Hastings.
Yeah, well, that's got a nice ring to it, hasn't it?
Yeah, I like it. It's a bit
So
Del
how have they
Trotter.
helped you? 'Cause, I can't remember. Is it just the new album that's on with them, or was the Bubby Tone 2 album with them as well? I can't remember, to be perfectly honest.
No, it's Bobby Tone 2 and...
Yeah.
Yeah, and the
So
Voices.
how have they helped? Because I know they're not a huge label, and you're quite different to a lot of the stuff they got on there. So how have they?
Yeah,
helped?
I mean, when they first... Lee first saw me, I'm not sure whether they'd already moved down or not, but a couple of years ago, just after... I think it was just after I got back from the first European tour, then I played a show with Thad in Music's Not Dead in Bexhill, and Darren Morris, who's on And the Voices, Small Circles, Families, had invited Lee, saying, just come along and see this, to see all the acts, and just said, you might also like Otti's stuff. And Lee heard it, and in his own words, I think, fell in love with it and really loved it. And then just, initially, he was just going to kind of help me out with stuff, and we had a meeting in a pub to just chat about, I don't know, what I was doing, if I was interested in publishing, and who I'd go with, etc., but not really with an inkling to sign the stuff, because I mean they deal more with, I don't know what you'd call it really.
No, it's
world and urban and
yeah,
DJ
it's a
and
very
producer
varied
stuff.
label. And
Yeah, I mean they have more. They are getting more into live stuff now.
Mm.
I think it was the second live band as such. Don't really know what the distinction is. I mean it's all music, but there's definitely a distinction.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm the only person with an acoustic guitar.
Yeah, well, I think pretty much half from what I've heard.
Actually, more like Trees have
and
an
they do a
acoustic
lot of
guitar as well.
reissues and that as well. So,
Yeah.
So I mean,
But they've helped. Yeah, they've helped massively.
so I
is
mean,
the answer.
with that, I mean, obviously you've had quite a varied life, even at a young age. But I mean, is there any sort of advice you would give to sort of brand new musicians that are maybe watching this or hearing this, and the sort of do's and don'ts that you've learned so far, even?
I'm probably not the best to ask, really. I'm quite an impulsive, thoughtless person in a lot of ways.
So maybe that's
Just
maybe
go
that's
with
it.
it,
Just,
yeah.
There you are. I mean, that could be the
Yeah.
advice. Just go with it. Do your own thing. Go with the flow.
Yeah, I think what I'm happy with, even though I'm not at a point where I can buy my own houses and whatever silly stuff, but I am at least doing what I want to do, and I can write whatever I like. Basically, I'm not on a label that goes, I don't know, could you just change that chorus and do this thing and add this keyboard, and hey, you know that indie thing you're doing, can we lean more towards that? I can basically just make at this point, if I want, probably not, just make a pure noise album, and just for the sake of investigating it, and not sell much of it, but at least have done it and play a gig like that. So I guess stick to the things that the writing that makes you most nervous and makes you feel most uneasy initially. I think that's the stuff where I feel a bit like, oh, I'm being a bit bare right now. They're usually the songs, the lyrics, the performances that most seem to resonate with people.
Yeah, I think
in the long run.
Seeing you live, there's an element of sort of that comes out sometimes in the live performance. It's slightly different, you know. You're
quite averse
sort
to
of bearing
reversing
all
as well.
Sometimes it's sort of really putting yourself into it.
Yeah, I think I'm just still an amount of self-therapy based on the past. I think just dealing with youth.
So is performance a good way of getting things out? I mean, whether it be your
it's
own
my favourite
songs.
environment. Yeah, funnily enough, because I just feel I still haven't. I'd like to be gigging 5 or 6 times a week, really, but it's not always practical because you don't always get paid gigs. But,
no,
that is definitely my favourite element. That's why I leant towards like the third album. We recorded everything in 2 days. All the lead vocals are live as the backing track's being put down, and I preferred that. I mean, there's bits and pieces here and there where I wouldn't say you lose anything, to be fair, but there's bits where it's a bit
loose.
A little looser and tattier than it might be in one where you've overdubbed the vocals, but I much prefer that, really, in the long run, once you've got over the fact that it might be a bit flat and sharp here and there.
But as you said, if you're happy with it, then that's got to be a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you're happy with it, full stop, and you're happy to play it.
And the few people that might really like it, then really like it, genuinely.
Yeah.
For something you can actually do live as well, I much prefer that. When you can actually go and play a gig and people go,
they
oh,
really
you
produce
actually
it.
sound like that,
That's
sweet.
right. Yeah, that's what I mean. There's so many, you want to go to a gig, you want to hear it note perfect for some strange reason. But
I think that's what I didn't like about a band like Floyd, as great as they are. I found their indulgence in... So just one of the only examples I can think of right now of feeling a little disappointed watching a video of theirs and going, what? Why are they playing it exactly like the record?
Yeah.
I felt that a bit of a shame. I love just the Hendrix approach to stuff, or later Lennon, for example, or Nirvana, the way they just, you know, they might shorten it or lengthen it, or not even sing the chorus.
Well, sometimes you say the performance, sometimes it takes you to different places on different nights, doesn't it? So you go with it, whereas if you're Pink Floyd and, no, I can't play that, no, I've got to play this one.
Yeah, this is the solo bit,
Yeah.
the special solo bit.
So one thing I must ask, is I'll ask everybody, is about the Hastings music scene. I mean, you obviously lived here for a while, and I know you're very much involved with a lot of the players, as you've already said here. So how do you find this, having travelled around, how would you compare Hastings to other places of comparable size or cities? Because everyone goes on about how good the music scene is here. Is it as good as we say it is? Put you on the spot again.
As we say it is.
Well, I mean, I'm always shouting from the rooftops about it, you know.
Yeah, I think for the size of it, it's definitely, it has more noticeable differences in style, in quality. There's not one sort of thing. I don't know, I feel a little bit like, maybe it's best not to even mention the towns and cities, but I feel like there's other cities and towns where there's a notable sameness, for want of a better word. You know, if you go to see a certain kind of indie band as such, the whole scene would just sound the same in certain towns and cities that I've been anyway.
Yeah, I think that goes back. We can always sort of look like heavy metal always comes from the Black Country, from the Midlands, or certain places that have their
and then you have the certain sort of London sound here and there, and
you know, Manchester,
obviously there's great stuff comes out of all of them, and you see great stuff in cities in Europe that has its own thing. But for the size of it, it certainly has something. It's flowering. I think when I first got here, I first actually moved here and have lived here on and off since. About, 8 years ago at least, I think, yeah. It felt a little like a barren landscape but even then, within a few weeks, you start meeting people and going, oh my God, there's, you know, loads of musicians live here. But it was more of a, musicians lived here.
Yeah.
Even professional ones, but they'd work somewhere else.
Yes.
Whereas it's starting to get more to a point where there's, like with Fat Tuesday, like with all sorts of stuff you're involved in, you just have more of a, it feels more like a community of, oh my God, all these bands are local, right?
Yeah, I think that
felt a little more barren back then.
Yeah, it's something that I've noticed as well. There's sort of and the diversity of the different sort of genres of music that we've got here, and the way that they all mix and match.
Yeah,
and
I mean, you get
other.
from highly rehearsed indie music and rock music to acoustic and completely free noise music. I mean, like Jason Williams and Jeff Lee to me are just two greats in my opinion, because they also come from a pedigree. But what they're doing right now as well is still really borderline genius.
I suppose maybe
Fun.
Hastings gives them the opportunity and the freedom to do that. Maybe, I don't know, a receptive audience locally as well. Possibly.
Yeah, it's probably just easier cheaper to live, isn't it, in a way?
Well, no, that's
because
they
go quite far afield to play a lot of the time. But I guess there is also quite a receptive audience for all sorts of music and venues to play it in as well.
Okay, right. Sort of tying things up a bit. So you've got 3 albums out. I know you've got a couple on BBE Music. But how can people get your music? Can they buy it in shops? Can they buy it from you at gigs or
I know there's
online, social media stuff? Or?
Yeah, I mean it's digital all over the place on every site you can think of. I've realised now. I don't really look at that so much, but in the process of making I've been putting together a profile email at the moment for venues and that. Because I've usually done it far more personally on phones and just sending out little blue links on emails, but I've noticed they're usually after something a little nicer and with photos in or whatever. And the process of doing that, I've been looking for press links and stuff online. I've realised there's more going on than I thought there was. So there are shops out there that sell it.
So do you feel you have to be a bit more organised these days to when you're sort of selling yourself or selling your music or trying to get gigs, that you have to be more...
Yeah, I ought to be. Even in the process of learning, I realise I'm not, but that's okay. I do my best. Could do with a manager, but it'll happen. My Brian Epstein will turn up one day.
Well, I think it's a common point actually with other people, is that nowadays you've got so much social media and other things that you have to deal with, like all that, and it's very hard for a musician or even a band to do it when they've got all the other stuff that they should be doing, the writing.
Yeah, and there's a certain amount of self-promotion I can't stomach. I have moments where I feel like I can do this. I wake up in the morning, have a coffee, I had a good night the night before, like most likely a gig, and then I just feel like I can spend an hour or two bigging something up that is basically me and my mates. But I think it is easier for someone who's doing it professionally as such. So I mean, as much as we're in a time where you can basically release any music you like by just putting it out on Bandcamp or whatever. But the actual process of then promoting it, making it commercial to the degree of at least having part income or making income out of it in gigs, etc., it does take a little more, and you do need a group around you, if you call it a label or management or publishing, whatever you want to call it, really. I've noticed, as soon as you work with people like BB or publishing deal I'm about to sign in London, that you just end up getting, it just feels more like a family. It's not instant money as such at all, but
someone else is taking care of the business, though, so that leaves you free to do what you want.
Yeah, and I mean, if someone's gone, I love what you do, let's invest in that with time and money and whatever else, you just end up feeling there's a different kind of energy there, basically.
Yeah.
Other than having to always, rather than having to always rely on whether you're in the right mood to talk about yourself.
Well, as you've got people who are encouraging you as well and giving you a bit of backup and confidence, maybe a shot in the arm, and that you are actually moving in the right direction. Sometimes.
Yeah. And I mean, in the like Lee Bright, BB, for example, their business and their job is to sell records and somehow keep that going. So no matter how much I look into it, he's always going to know an amount more as to how to do things. Even if I sometimes come and go, well, can't we do it like this? And he's like, oh, that's a bad idea. I'll have creative ideas or emotional ideas as to why I want to release a record at this and this time, or why it needs to have this cover or whatever, or the title needs to be a mile long, which we didn't do.
Well, I suppose that's it. I mean, and that's that level of expertise that they give you that other people might not get. If they haven't got.
And I mean, there's a Tris Taylor, who used to be a local, now lives in London.
Yeah.
He's set up a, I guess, well, not so much management, more publishing and sync company called Pink Lizard Music, and I've decided to sign publishing with them for like a long-term thing that I back what he's doing. I like where he's coming from, what he's doing with it. Working with him as well as working with someone that understands that environment just far better than me.
No, I think that's it. Sometimes it is just finding the right people to help you and push you. And
yeah, because there's moments where I feel like, oh God, because I do know musicians who, I guess, do 90-95% of it all themselves, and I'm in awe of them doing it. But when I get to a point of thinking, right, should I go off for 2 months and up my knowledge on publishing and syncing and all of the other things that I don't understand enough of right now.
Soul destroying.
I'd rather. Yeah, I couldn't imagine doing it. And when I write every bloody day, and I don't want to start writing with that in my mind as such, because I know it's a reality. I want to make an income and money out of my music, and because if I want to do it for the whole of my life and with most of my time, the reality is I need to make some sort of income out of it anyway. But just want to, I guess, just write the best music I can, and I think if I'm thinking about the numbers side of it, it's good to just have other people go, we love that, we're gonna go think about this stuff. I mean, actually, in a sense, I'd feel more comfortable managing another act that I really loved. I think I could probably do that to a degree, in my head, and not realistically.
Or maybe for the future,
Yeah, I mean, basically, if I got to a point where I had some sort of extra resources and I did see an act that I really loved and I felt I could help in some way, that's somewhere where I can see I'd have that in my mind to do it. So maybe it's more of a distance thing, isn't it?
No,
when you're reviewing it, you can go, guys, awesome, carry on, nice one.
When it's your own stuff, you're too involved with it.
Yeah, just gets a bit.
So that's the advice out there, is to try and find someone else to help you out a little bit.
Well, make a family, I think all
share the load.
Acts that I can think of that have actually made a mark of some sort, be it in music or art or writing or whatever sort of creative world. They haven't done it all themselves.
You might think they have, and then you read a bit about it and you find out there's other people there as well.
Absolutely, no, totally, definitely. There's a family behind it.
So get your family together. Well, I think that's a good place to end. Thank you very much, Otti.
Thank you.